you know when we're live on LinkedIn and our other social channels. But for folks who have joined us here in the Zoom, welcome. We will get started in just a few seconds once this is connected. It looks like we are connected here on the live stream. So hello and welcome to the folks here in the Zoom room, as well as folks on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook who are watching this open house for the AIGA DesignOps Ed Salon Series. My name is Lishan Huang, Director of Design Learning and Content here at AIGA, the Professional Association for Design, and I'm joined by Frances Yllana, who is the curator and host of the DesignOps Ed Salon Series, and also director on our AIGA National Board. She comes from a background in branding, experience design, design ops, as well as community strategy. So welcome, Frances.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really excited to be hosting the webinar series this next year. Should I go ahead and get started in talking about what the series is about and kind of the background and what to expect?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Perfect. So like Lishan said, I am on the national board for AIGA, and I've also been in AIGA leadership from a chapter level to the national level for the past 11 years. I've been in the industry for about 20. And so I've been a designer as a craftsperson, a designer as a student, an observer, a teacher, a manager, and a leader. And that is, all of that is the rationale behind why I pitched the DesignOps webinar series. Essentially, AIGA is, it courts members that are students, it courts members who are craftsmen, but we, and members who are leaders of their own firms and companies. And throughout all of that, there is a need for design ops that I don't think has been as vocalized as much in the last 10 years, but also the most recently, the last 2 or 3 years, especially with the pandemic and the kind of awakening about employee experiences and making sure that our teams have what they need to do their best work. So that's what design ops is to me. Essentially, over the last, throughout my career, I've been creating, as a manager, I've been creating, growth plans. I've been creating ways for our teams to communicate across different practices from, technology. How do they collaborate with design? How do we collaborate with content strategy? How do we collaborate with project management and operations? And essentially all of that is stuff that designers need to do right now if they don't have somebody in a design ops capacity. And so design ops is really important for me because it's everything in design but design. So no matter how you break it down or dissect it, it is essentially there to empower designers to do their best work possible by getting everything out of the way. And so we want to, with this series, inspire people who are interested in a different path, those who have years of experience of design or they're design adjacent operations and management professionals, those just starting out in the design operations discipline, those interested in breaking into this part of the field where design isn't what you deliver, but what you help to empower and strengthen. So this 12-part series across the calendar year 2022, we'll have sessions at the last Wednesday of every month. They'll be an hour each, split evenly between the talk and presentation and experience of the roles and experience of our guests, followed by 30 minutes for questions from the audience. And our guests come from IBM, Atlassian, DocuSign. We've got people who are the founders of Design Ops, basically. So in January, we have Angelos Arnis. He will be talking about design ops from the beginning. When did it start, or when did it start to come about? We have design ops employee number 1. There are a lot of organizations who are just now implementing design ops, or there was somebody inside the company that has been advocating for this role. So Michelle Chin will be giving us a presentation on how do you start design ops in your company. So that's February. Then in March, we have Peter Merholz, who was one of the founders of Adaptive Path, and he wrote Org Design for Design Orgs. In April, we have Kate Kaplan. She's going to be talking about roles and career development. Shipra Kayan will be joining us in May, talking about growing teams and org types. Kaylig Delamont Prigent We'll be talking about establishing standards in July. Adam Fry-Pierce, formerly of Envision, will be joining us. He's in DocuSign now. He'll be joining us in August, talking about developing training programs. We have Dominique Ward joining us in September, discussing how to advance craft excellence within an organization. We have Owen Michael Hammond and Jenny Price from IBM speaking of employee experience in October. And then we have the legendary Meredith Black brand joining us in November. We have 2 or 3 more spots that we're filling up, but essentially, we really want to, ask you today, like, what challenges are you facing in regards to design ops? What are you looking for in this series? And then we're really here to field any questions that you might have about design ops in this series this next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you. No, and I think that was great. Thank you for that intro and general overview there, Frances. I posted the question that Frances just posed to everyone. What challenges are you facing in regards to design ops here in the chat? If folks want to chime in the chat, feel welcome to do so. I also just wanted to chime in and say that there are a couple different entry points into this series. So I also posted a link to the page on aiga.org where you can learn more and check out the pricing. But basically you can sign up for the whole series, and we have member, non-member pricing. We also have per session pricing. And then the other way to access the DesignOps Ed content series is through signing up for one of Aig's certificate programs, which are basically learn on your own pace online courses. You sign up, you get access to videos and other written materials online that you can access anywhere, anytime with an internet connection. And so there's a few certificate programs there in Design Ops, Leadership Management and Design Ops, as well as Design Ops Master Certificate, where it comes with the content series in 2022. So you can layer on that additional learning as well.
Yeah, we're really excited about the certificates that are available too, because again, I think over the last 10 years or so, we've seen design, we all talk about it. We've seen design take its place at the, have a seat at the table. And so, we have a lot of designers who, they're trying to find ways to go back to school for the management stuff, for the business leadership stuff. But AIGA over the last year has been putting together these design certificates for creative leadership. And I think it's really cool that we've got this webinar series for design ops, but we also have for small business leadership for, I think you hosted an open house for the design introverts, correct?
Yes.
So it's really kind of basically creating this package for designers that is almost kind of like what we talk about with design ops, like how can we get things out of the way so that designers and design managers and design leaders can continue to advance in their career professionally. But also we wanted to make design leadership more equitable. So giving people more of an opportunity to attend webinar series like this and learn from leaders and hear first person from those who have been leading this area of practice, ask questions, really have access to the people who have been kind of trailblazing through this area of expertise, and then making it more accessible to become leaders in this space by giving these opportunities for these tiers for design ops certification. So we've got the design ops certificate, the leadership management and design ops certificate, which is like the second tier, and then we have the design ops master certificate. So they're all complementary. Some just take a little bit more of a commitment and just a lot more classes to take, but we want to give people different entry points into the certification as well. Lishon, did you want to mention a couple of the others, the other certs, or do you think we mentioned all of them already?
I think you've mentioned all of them. We have a lot of different bundles, so they're made up of different modules, and basically they come in different sizes in terms of how comprehensive you want to go in your learning. And thank you also for mentioning our creative introverts program, which is also launching in January. And then we also have our the bottom line, which was the open house we had yesterday, which is about design and business as well. So we're really just trying to expand our portfolio of learning opportunities and professional development opportunities here at AIGA. And so you can figure out which ones work best for you, or mix and match different ones that work for you and your team. I think it's helpful to think about this too in terms of like the different levels, right? There's the things that you're investing in for yourself as a designer, as a leader, as a professional. And then there's things that are really about learning at that team or even organizational level. And we're trying to address those different levels as well.
Yeah, and I think too, for those who are interested in the certification, or even this webinar series, this is definitely one of those things that you can write off. Like you can ask your bosses, to fund this for you if this is something that they're interested in or advancing your career, because it is. I think you can write off learning. Correct? You should know this. You're better at the education.
Yes, for the most part, professional development is something that can be written off. Like obviously, double check with your corporate policies and with your tax people if you deal with them directly. But yeah, for the most part, it is something that is a business expense.
Yeah. So, do we have any questions, or does anybody want to kind of give any input onto like your interest in the series? We've got, I think, 9 attendees on the Zoom. So, would anybody like to share what has led them to join today's call?
Looks like we have about 20 or so people on LinkedIn as well. Sean on LinkedIn said this is so important. So thank you, Sean, for acknowledging that. We're trying to respond to people's needs and your questions as well, because as Frances said, some of the slots next year we're still curating, and so we can adapt things based on people's interests.
So does anybody want to share what topics might be the most intriguing to you based on the ones that I mentioned just a second ago? Paste this in here.
I guess, oh, here we go. Thanks for posting that calendar there. I guess I'll start with one while folks think of questions. For me, I'm thinking about how the issues and the questions that DesignOps addresses have been around for a long time, for decades, but DesignOps as like a term is relatively newer. And so for organizations and teams that are less familiar with it and trying to figure out like, how does this fit into an existing org chart or structure of division of roles and expertise? Like, how do you broach those initial conversations? Because we often have like agencies and design teams that might be divided up between like the creative side and the account side or the business side. And so where does that DesignOps layer of things kind of fit in? Because it feels like it's kind of in the middle of some Venn diagrams and in existing silos. So how do you fit that in when it's not so familiar in an organization?
Yeah. So I've seen it in some places where it's basically, if you have the Venn diagram of, and this is a conversation that I discovered it as I was continuing to grow in my management career. You have people, you have process, you have practice, you have profit. You have these areas that a traditional creative director or manager, whatever size company it is, right? A lot of times DesignOps has been associated with product companies, but it's not all the work that a DesignOps, a practitioner in a product company does is work that people within boutique companies and like large companies, consultancies have all done. But a lot of times it's been placed on the shoulders of one of the creative leaders or 2 or 3 of the creative leaders. But we almost all have to address like growth plans for our designers. We have to address resourcing. Are we putting our designers on the projects that will help them be successful, will help them grow? We also have, basically the tools and the processes and the communication and the collaboration. And that is all stuff that a creative leader or a senior designer has to take care of in addition to design. So there's a reason why people get into design in the first place, and then all the work that we do isn't always design. I think I saw somewhere at one point, a designer actually does design work maybe 50% of the day if they're lucky, right? A lot of it is that operations part. It's just getting the things out of the way for either themselves or for their teams. And so I've seen some companies start having a design operations manager be part of their creative leadership. They start putting that in there. I've seen design program managers, so definitely some of those that are already in, they're involved with design very heavily, but they're like product owners or product managers, and they have good relationships with design, and so they end up being the design program manager. The thing about DesignOps is just people that are passionate about design, so they don't even have to be traditional designers from a start. So essentially, there's different ways into it. You can get into it from the product management role. You can get into it from, you're a design leader or a design practitioner, and you found an interest in kind of the operations part. So you see some executive creative directors just put their, get a handle in it, and having to work more closely with operations and IT and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ways into getting into design ops practices, whether you have the design ops title or not. And most people are already doing it. And so I think it's definitely interesting to see how it evolves in the next year, especially with companies scaling, with the workforce being more distributed, because it's kind of all these systems have to be in place now with remote work and scale and just everything that's going on in the world. It's making all of these much more important than they were always important for, much more having a lot more emphasis on them actually having a practice around them.
Yeah, that was a great point you were saying about how folks are already doing this, right? Or they're thinking through these questions, even if they aren't calling it design ops, or even if they're not familiar with the term explicitly yet, that it's something that's relevant in all of these contexts. I'm seeing Annette's question here in the chat about design ops outside of product environments, which I think you started touching on, Frances, but I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so one of the things that inspired me over the last couple of years with AIJ is that IBM has had a big influence on AIJ leadership and design thinking, and introducing a lot of the leadership and kind of growing the relationship they had with the design community, because they had established their own design center of excellence in Austin a couple of years, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Owen Michael Hammonds, who will be speaking with us in October, actually comes from a design background, but now he's a principal in almost, I wouldn't say human relations, HR. He is at IBM HR, right? And so his role evolved into IBM HR because of the things that he felt, and like the company and IBM felt were really necessary for their design teams and growing that design team. And they're not technically a product company; they're technically a consultancy, right? That serves a lot of organizations in everything technical, right? So that's kind of where I saw the first instance of a really robust, gorgeous knowledge base that they were creating for their design team, but then introduced it to the rest of the IBM organization, and how they taught the design thinking process to all of their designers, but now introducing it to all of the engineers and everybody that works for IBM. And so that's definitely I think one of the most obvious success stories of the design ops, without the title of design ops really on it, because it is about HR, it's about teaching your team. And so that was something that's always inspired me in kind of the things that I've advocated for, which is more learning, more training, more democratic ways of growing your team, and more equitable ways of growing your team. And so it is going to be really cool to see how some of our leaders who will be speaking with us talk about kind of how DesignOps has been integrated into the work that they're doing. I know, let's see, Kate Kaplan, she's not at a product company, but she has been working with Nielsen Norman Group. And so she's one of those amazing teachers that I think has given a lot of good insights into the work that DesignOps can do within these different areas of just design leadership. We also have Aig is a staff front-end developer at Shopify, and so he's again like a front-end developer, but he's working within the DesignOps kind of area of practice. And then Meredith Black, she's been in product companies, but she's been a consultant really for DesignOps. So it's not strictly a product environment anymore. I mean, I think a lot of the things that I was doing were through, whenever I was working for an agency or for a software consultancy. Like, I'm not in product technically. At Project 202, we do serve product-ish companies, but it's all enterprise software. So it's not all product environments, but I think the thing that unifies all of them is, just this need to centralize operations for design so that we can do things more effectively, but really open up the way for I guess for me, for brilliance really, and excellence, and people to do their best work.
That's great.
That's definitely something that we'll note in our questioning of our guests, is how would they advise DesignOps and how it's applied in different areas outside of product environments. I think that's something really good to know.
Yeah, and I think because DesignOps is one of these overlapping spaces in the Venn diagram, like even if you watching this or you have colleagues who are not necessarily designers, they're people on the HR side, or you mentioned like a developer, other folks who are touching on design or design adjacent, this is also something that we welcome folks like that to join as well. I'm seeing another question in the LinkedIn about social media, and I don't know if I fully understand the question, but I'll just take some license here to interpret it. Like, social media is used a lot by companies and brands to interact with both their consumers, but also for like hiring and that whole kind of talent pipeline. So Frances, do you have any thoughts on like how social media fits into some of these DesignOps questions?
Yeah, when you were talking about hiring and talent pipelines, I think right now, I don't know if this is related to the question, but I think now where we have, again, this whole great resignation, I think it's actually more the great reflection is people looking at, the jobs that they have to offer, the roles and the experiences that people have available to them, and where they're searching. I think people are starting, or companies are starting to use their social media accounts to attract more talent, to attract more employees, because the market out there is really, I wouldn't say, is it a buyer's market? If the designers are the buyers, you get to choose. You have a lot of people who have, they can grow their career where they're at, or they can find work somewhere else, but it's all, really, I think I see a lot of internal marketing where companies are wanting to make sure that their teams know that there's opportunities available to them. But then you also have a lot of social media where it's, people talking about the experiences that they have with their teams. Their teams are talking about like what it's like to work for them, because everyone's trying every tactic to gain talent or keep talent. I don't know if that answers, but I think that is a really interesting question to bring out. I think that Slack is also one of those areas where it's almost like, for me, it's another like social channel, really. It's like it's basically the business social media outside of LinkedIn. And you have a lot of communities growing around these different areas of practice, like research ops and design ops. We have design ops assembly. And so that's another area that I think that could be explored in regards to kind of like advancing, just the industry around that topic in general, just because there's a lot of shared information. I'm not really sure if that answers the question or if I didn't really quite
Hopefully
understand.
so. Yeah, for the person who asked the question, feel free to follow up in the chat there. Like, I'll interpret it in the sense of like, I think one of the keywords is transparency, because as you were saying, Frances, it is a market right now that favors talent, that favors design professionals most of the time as companies are looking to hire and build their teams. And so like even to plug another AIGA program, we've been doing team talks where we invite different design teams or managers and maybe mid-level or more junior designers to just talk about the team dynamics, and how their design team works, both their individual stories, but also a bit about the culture and the processes. And I think that's something that people considering jobs and joining different organizations really want to know more about these days. It's not just like, okay, what is the job description, but like, what does it look like at that team level, kind of culturally and process-wise and all of that.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because design and our industry are the companies that we go work for. I think for me, I've just been seeing this change in work in general. And I was having a conversation the other day about, like how design operations, how the different job descriptions are so, it depends on where who's hiring, right? Like it basically, it's just the maturity of a knowledge force, right? So I think every company is approaching, design maturity differently. And it's how they define, if you're looking at these different job descriptions for design leadership, it's how they define that role and what the responsibilities are. And I think that, the reason why it can be kind of confusing or it's not as clear is because we're still looking at this like framework of, the scientific management where you have, your CEO, your CTO, CMO, but design operations is a totally different thing. It's more flat, right? Like you're not necessarily, defining this operations for the entire company. You're defining operations for design and whoever is integrated with design. So it's really interesting to see how design operations and those that speak about it evolve the term and the practice, because it's an evolution of work in general, because we're not making widgets, right? Like our jobs are basically, we're creating solutions and service and knowledge. And so it's not necessarily something that's quite defined in the framework that we're used to or that we've all kind of grown up in. It's a changing world. So I think design operations will have a really huge impact on how the future of work evolves. That's kind of one of the things that I'm really interested in the series.
Awesome. So we have a couple minutes left and 2 audience questions that hopefully we can get to here in LinkedIn. So I'll just batch them together. One is from Courtney, who wants to know about how AIGA's DesignOps certificates differ from other certificates and options, or like even MBA programs. And then the other one is about whether the series will address different design ops in different kinds of design environments, from social, print, film and TV, etc. I can take the first one actually about how our certificates are different. So if you sign up for the certificates, we work with a partner that also creates courses for universities online classes. And so there are some like transferable continuing ed credits that you can look into that they're sort of certified to do, but it's not a degree in the sense of like an MBA in that sense, right? So there are like quizzes and things like that that help you with learning and things like that, but it's like less than a degree, or it's less expensive than a degree and more modular in that sense. So there's some flexibility in terms of like just focusing on the things that you're interested in. So that's the difference. And if you have follow-up on that, we can take this offline or check out our site there. I'll turn it over to Frances about that second question about the, I guess, variety of design ops in different design environments.
Yeah, so for me, this earlier this year, I was asked to take on design operations or just kind of start beginning the practice of design operations with Project 202. And before I was asked this question, I had realized that the head of design for Project 202 had kind of gone through. He had visited my LinkedIn, and I looked at all of the things that were written in every job description I've had since I started as a manager, and I've been in management for like 13 years. And it'll be, drive design for, this many clients, blah, blah, blah. But then it was create operational efficiencies between, the different team members. And prior to Project 202, I was at a design agency, multiple design agencies, for a brand consultancy to a boutique agency, to video, to film. And like basically I've done a lot of the different parts of design, as kind of at least I mentioned earlier. But the things that I've done at each job are design ops related. So growth plans, again, like structuring what promotional cycles look like, what what it takes to get from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, things that teams need to do, to different tools that we could use across different areas of the agency, right? So like design ops, I think, is one of those things that we've just now started defining it in the area of product design. But if you break it up, like all of those are things that people have to do. And so I'm really interested in how we can continue to grow the practice in areas that aren't specifically product design. I think design ops is really important for design leaders to be able to become more than just design leaders, but like company leaders. And like I think it's really helpful in growing organizations in the capacity of design, but also in the capacity of doing so for humans, for making the work better, but also the employee experience. And I mean, I think design ops is really one of those things that it's so big because it's part of everything. And so I'm really interested in this series helping to kind of define that a bit more, so that we can kind of, I guess, like put a label on it where it needs to be, but because it is evolving. But it is definitely an interest of mine that I hope to kind of dive into a bit more in conversations with our different leaders. And again, we're still curating 2 or 3 more slots, so we might be able to address it more in a non-traditional product sense.
Awesome. So to wrap up, just a reminder to everyone, our bundle registration closes January 31st. So we encourage you to sign up as soon as possible, but also reach out if you have additional questions. I know it's hard to address everything in a 30-minute session, but this is our last Zoom live stream for 2021. So I want to wish everyone happy holidays and thanks for joining us today. Frances, do you have any last words or things you want to leave us with today?
Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us today. If you know anyone else who's interested, not in specifically design ops, but really advancing design and the experience for their team members, and the growth for their team members, please invite them. They might not know that design ops is what they're looking for in regards to kind of finding the things that will help ease them through 2022 and help them grow their leadership, but also their companies. And so if you know anyone that's interested in just basically everything besides the design work, please send them to the series, and we hope to see you guys and answer your questions and help kind of grow the knowledge about this really important area of growth in the design industry.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the folks who tuned in live today. This is going to be recorded, or you can watch the replay over on the AIGA LinkedIn, and we'll do a captioned version that we'll publish on our site as well. So thanks, everyone. Take care. Happy holidays.